these are the most vulnerable citizens. And we have an obligation to make sure that we stick up for the people who eat on the dollar menu, the people who ride the wheels bus, the people on Section 8, the people who've been marginalized in our community. We have an obligation to fight for them, and I'm sure you do, and I'm not accusing you of that. But there's some real concerns with this process. What can we do? Do you think that there's anything that we can do to fix the one part that makes all of us feel really uncomfortable about these vulnerable citizens?
Well, perhaps.
I'm not sure I quite understand when you say fix the problem. They are given vouchers, and they are able to move within the city, and we provide a higher rent if they move to certain places in the city. We don't determine where they go, or we don't tell them where to go.
I think the problem we have, when the gentleman was explaining it to us during our meeting, he explained to us that when the people get their Section 8 vouchers in the mail, they're going to be called into the office and they're going to be given a choice whether they want to utilize it for subsidized housing within the projects.
No.
That's what he explained. And that's where we have a problem, because I don't know anybody that gets a Section 8 voucher and wants to be moved within the projects.
That's not the way it works. These vouchers are for private housing, not for housing that we own and manage.
Okay, that's not what he said. That's where the clarification goes, because I repeated back to him what he said. And he said, you got it. That's exactly what he said. Bruce, you remember?
I'm not, well,
Mr. Kimmel?
are you asking me a question? Well, I remember a complicated discussion that I initiated on the difference between a tenant-based voucher and project-based vouchers. I had some reservations with tenant-based vouchers. I wasn't familiar with them, and I felt that if they restricted the ability of people to move, or if they filtered people into certain areas, that it would create certain problems for the city. And I mentioned some issues that relate to school segregation and desegregation efforts. And from then, we went on to a discussion, first of all, of the tenant-based vouchers, what they were, how they differed from the project-based vouchers. And I recall the limitations on the project-based vouchers, which you mentioned before. Now, this question that you just brought up, I don't personally, I don't recall exactly, but let me see if we can continue this. If our project-based vouchers, if they are for particular projects,
Yes.
they stay with the project. So it could, for those people who are taking advantage of a project-based voucher, they would not be able to leave the project and take the voucher with them.
Stays with the project.
And that's capped at, what was 20%?
No.
What was it? Where is that capped at?
We have 136 project-based vouchers, which would be Monterey Village.
Right.
We have 200 moderate rehab vouchers, which is Colonial Village, and we have 680 tenant-based vouchers, which means that they could take the voucher and go wherever they want.
Wherever.
And the city of Norwalk is actually very unique in its handling, our housing authority, in the handling of our vouchers, that we have a two-tier system in an effort to break down, to deconcentrate. We encourage our applicants and our current residents who are voucher holders or who are going to become voucher holders to move on to higher income areas, so that they have a better opportunity across the board.
Right, and in our packet, two of the charts that were included in the packet were those line graphs that show you the success over different periods of times of achieving that goal, of moving folks from a lower to a higher income area. We had some interesting discussions of what happened during certain periods in relation to the economy, where it would dip and where they crisscrossed, and we weren't sure what the reasons were. But I understand, I agree that you're doing a fairly good job in that regard. But how does that, now, the question is, with the project-based vouchers, if you come into the project using taking advantage of that voucher, is that you can't leave it unless you can't leave it and take the voucher?
Right.
Okay. That's something I have to think about. Now, what didn't come up in the discussion was you mentioned, I just recall the tenant-based and the project-based, and I think in our packet, I don't remember, you mentioned a third kind of voucher, which I didn't quite remember from the discussion we had, and I don't recall it in the backup. What was that again?
Moderate rehab.
And what exactly is that?
Moderate
And can you take it with you? Can you move with it?
No.
That's Colonial Village. It's one of the few housing authorities, we're one of the few housing authorities in the state that have Section 8 vouchers assigned to a state moderate rental project.
That's right. I recall.
And we have 200 of those. Normally, before that, when rent went up, tenants had to pay more as a result of that. And we were able, probably 15, 20 years ago, to convince the state to convert that to a Section 8 mod rehab.
And that's restricted to that site also?
The mod rehab, the units are under mod rehab, so when they leave, they can't take a piece of paper and go somewhere else and rent a unit.
Okay, can you run then go through the three types, but just give us the name and the number, so we get a feel for the portion of the folks with vouchers who can move and those who can't.
680 are the tenant-based vouchers.
That's
means
total, 680.
680 is all we've gotten from HUD. They can go wherever they want. They can move to Hawaii if they want. Project-based vouchers, which is Monterey Village, which the voucher stays with the project. We have 136. And the moderate rehab voucher, which is run through the state, we have 200, and that's Colonial Village. Now, what I also failed to mention...
Can I ask a question? Just
Sure.
curiosity. The number 136 rings a bell regarding Washington Village.
It's true. It is 136 of Washington Village.
Okay, that's...
This is what I said. But that's public housing.
Right. Okay, look, I'm not sure we answered the question. I'm not sure where to go at this point. There's a deadline over our head. I thought the discussion we had and some of the issues that came up was very, very good. I assume we will continue those discussions as we move the next planning committee meeting, especially when we go through the minutes and to get a better handle on what's going on. I'm not sure if this issue pertains directly to the consistency deadline. Can we go forward? I don't see anything, from what the give and take that I've received, I don't see anything that I find objectionable here. I have questions about not being able to move with a voucher, okay? But I'm not that knowledgeable in this issue to come to any conclusions about that. I'm somewhat uncomfortable about that. And I think that came across in the earlier discussion at the committee level. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to jeopardize the program. Thank you.
Mr. Petrini, I think.
I'm just, Sharon mentioned